Part 64. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 636. Fei Jiao's cell phone rang. It was a call from the father Fei. The father just got off the plane and came to attend the so-called wedding in Fei Jiao's mouth. Fei Jiao picked up the phone and cried even more. Wow, Mian died, Mian died, she was by my second uncle and strong daughter. She committed suicide. Grandpa, my Mian died. If Fei Yun's did not talk about Fei Jiao, he took the woman in his arms out of the hospital door and realized that he did not drive. He called the driver and asked for it. But before the driver came, the old man came. Fei Yun's held the woman in her arms for a moment, hesitated for a moment, then got into the car. Fei Jiao also ran out behind him and got into the car. As soon as he entered the car, Fei Jiao continued to cry, "Grandpa, you have to decide for me, my uncle killed my daughter-in-law, I'm so uncomfortable, I managed to marry my daughter-in-law, Grandpa, I think whoops." After the old man gave Fei Jiao a glance, he turned to Fei Yun's, "What's going on?" Fei Yun's held the man in his arms and heard the words, raised his head, "She has my child in her belly, and she is my daughter-in-law." Fei Jiao, he has never seen such a shameless uncle, even the dead robbed him. The old man was obviously calmer than Fei Jiao, and immediately found out that this little son who did not usually talk, was not right at the moment. He squinted at the apparently dead girl in Fei Yun's arms, his face somber and silent, and drove the car to Fei's house. In those years, Fei Jiao later wanted to escape subconsciously. At the age of 18, he seems to have lived to 80. Grandpa probably didn't believe that there would be any so-called second uncle's child in her body. As a result, she was really pregnant. 1 month of pregnancy, the child is really an uncle. Everyone couldn't hide the second uncle, so they all wanted to hide him. But he is not a fool. The moment he saw the appraisal, he could not wait to end up with the scum of the second uncle. At that time, he was locked up at home, unable to access the internet, and unable to contact the outside world. He was secretly sent to a training base abroad by his family. This place is like A to him. Fei Jiao has always admired his elder uncle since he was a child. He always thought that he really couldn't reach the height of the second uncle. He was born to eat and die. However, he persisted, he was trained at the base, and this was 5 years. 5 years later, he was employed in some special organs of the country. I finally saw his second uncle again. He once vowed with his teeth, vowing that he must avenge his beloved girl, and he must fight with his second uncle for real, either for his death or for his death. 5 years have passed, although I know that the battle of life and death is impossible, but the thought has been lingering in my mind. Later, he knew that his thought was actually delusion. He gritted his teeth and tried to replace the second uncle, pulling the second uncle from the position of the owner of the Fei family. Since this second uncle is thinking about power and power, he will replace the second uncle by playing snakes and playing 7 inches. It is easy to imagine, but it is really difficult to do it. He will always be a child of an individual in front of his peers, but in the presence of his second uncle, he has always been a hairy guy. When he saw his second uncle again 5 years later, the man said to him, "The casket of ashes is always with me. After I die, she will be buried with me. She is my wife. You better, remember her again." He has always hated his uncle, and he hated his teeth, especially when he learned that he didn't let her fall into the ground, but imprisoned her beside him. He stared at his uncle as if he was staring at an enemy. He originally thought that when he saw the second uncle this time, he could maintain the appearance of light clouds, at least before he was not strong, he should not have conflict with the second uncle, but when he heard the second uncle, he was almost angry. Go crazy. He had another fight with his second uncle. This time, even though he was very powerful, he was taken by him before he was near the second uncle. His second uncle is a lunatic. Madman. He couldn't wait to fight with his second uncle. But the parents accused him not to go too far, saying that when he grew up, he should be sensible. The second uncle is the pillar of the Fei family today, and he should help the second uncle to protect the entire Fei family. When it comes to his original situation, it was still the second uncle who helped settle it, and it was not easy for him to understand the second uncle. He should be mature, not as naive as a child. Yes, everyone is standing with the second uncle. Everyone is supporting and understanding the second uncle. Everyone felt that he was the cause of death that year, not his uncle. He was angry and gritted. But he couldn't do much. Can't do anything. The more he grows up, the more he knows that he can't avenge his little girl. The person I hate the most is the person I have to help, and the saddest thing is nothing more. Sorry, I rode high, and the next plane is also pretty bloody, you guys, forgive me. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 637. When Yanj returned to the space of fans, the earliest sound of the dripping roar in the space of fans was heard. As soon as he saw it, he saw the dying chicken and Zhu Wei lying on the sofa. She frowned, closed her eyes slightly, and her mouth of basalt iron wok appeared in her hand. However, before she continued to move, the harsh roar of the drops suddenly lifted, and the mechanical voices of the non-discriminatory men and women also rang at this time. The threat was lifted, and a black card was accidentally harvested. Congratulations to the host. The sound rang 3 times before disappearing completely. Yan Ji walked to the chicken a few steps and explored with the knowledge of God. It seemed only tired and lethargic. She squinted at Ninetail, who seemed to be sleeping. Realizing that this guy's breath is stable, he closed his eyes to see his chaotic space. This time, the task should be to satisfy the wishes of the host, and make Fei Jiao's life painless and regretful. She thought that even if Fei Jiao was heartless and heartless, he wouldn't be in pain. Presumably the so-called second uncle would also make Fei Jiao in pain. This time the task should be completed. However, for the perfect tree like Yanj, she feels that this task is at best a passing line. It is never the way she likes to hurt 1000 and hurt 800 to make others feel guilty. So she didn't have much hope for the change of her own body in the chaotic space. However, to her surprise, a little green shoot was sent to her body. This little bit of green was really conspicuous in the chaotic space, and her heart was suddenly filled with joy. It will not take long for her to be green. When she exited from the chaos space, she saw Zhu Wei and the cub sitting on the sofa, all looking sad. If she read correctly, there were tears in the eyes of the two beasts. This is... What happened? Is it possible to explode each other's flowers? The chicken raised his head and looked at Yanj, looked at it, and cried again, fluttering his wings and crying into the arms of Yanj, "Wow, wow, I have a heartache, a pain, why do you die, why do you die?" Yanj originally wanted to hug it to appease him. When he heard it, after a brief moment, he immediately responded to the inexplicable words of the chicken. What did it mean? He reached out and patted the chicken. Zhu Wei, who came to hold her thigh, also gave Yan Fei. After being stunned by the song, the chicken cub slid off the wall and immediately flew in front of the song. Stop, Slat, can you be gentle with Laozi? Laozi is very fragile and can't stand a little devastation. Yanj glanced at it and asked, what's going on? The hen thought about it with a and thought, I don't know, I am very painful. To whom? That is your second uncle, his pain is very sympathetic. Mom, I can't think of it, I think it hurts. I am so upset, I am so sad. Fortunately, I am so good at seeing you. Otherwise, I am really crying to death, me, would. I just realized that I care about you so much. Otherwise, You have to protect yourself for me too. Obviously, the chicken did not feel that it was obviously a problem with Jiwei. Yanj asked, is there any answer to the question mark? The emotion of this second uncle can actually affect the chickens and nine tails in the geek system. It can be seen that this guy is defined by the geek system as danger. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 638. The chicken shook his head shiveringly, probably connected to the system of fans, and immediately called, what is the black card? What the is it? The chicken, who was silent for a while, finished studying the instructions, and groaned again, with the use of this stuff, you can make people turn black and numb, what stuff, coax the children to play. Words of song. She thought what the so-called tall thing is, this system of fans is really dregs. Yan Ji's so-called unexpected surprises for this geeky system have disappeared, and she asked the chicken, this mission, have you succeeded? The chicken then looked up, it seemed to remember something, staring at Yan Ji's face, and the eyes of the thief carefully looked. It was as if a flower was to be seen on Yan Ji's face. Yan Song frowned, what are you looking at? The chicken thought for a while and asked her, do you have any feelings in your face this time? Yanj pondered for a moment, the guy with question marks all over his body has a good kidney. After you finish, find a way to find out what he is. The chicken stunned and stretched his voice, just, is the kidney good? This piece of wood has to be dead or alive in the plane. The teardrops are so good that they just fall off. Why is there no reaction now? A little bit of emotion hasn't been brought back. Even if you don't care, you can't be so bullish. It still doesn't hurt his heart. Zhu Wei ran beside the chicken, and her two front paws were raised and swayed. Miss, my kidney is better, especially good, iron, you can toss anything. The patted him with one wing and continued to ask the song, don't you think you are a means of the plane, a little risky? Yan Ji nodded, it was very risky. I was afraid that the two men were selfish and would not be sad or killed each other because of the death of the host, but I have a second hand. When I said the last thing, there was a recording on the mobile phone, but also misposted to a university professor who admires the host. If she died silently, such a thing would definitely be followed up. The chicken puppet listened to the words, and later admired and said, do you really have no heart? Wood is so transparent that you can figure out a man. Look at your plane, put that the two men are tossing to death or to live, and they might love you for it. Words, people's thoughts determine their end. I can't figure out their hearts. I just follow the trend. They don't want to love because of me, but because of their own thoughts. Too esoteric, the cub didn't understand, he stared admiringly at the song, they both love the dead and alive you love, how about you, aren't you touched? Do they love me? Yanj laughed. They love themselves. Because her is not satisfied, it will be so painful. This is like the feeling that the poor suddenly flew because of the 100 million in hand. Yan Ji feels that she is not more valuable in the eyes of Fei Jiao and Fei Yuns. How much is more than 100 million? The chicken sighed, this would, she is not interested, to discuss this kind of thing with this guy, isn't that just a mediocrity? Yanj asked, is the mighty black? The chicken sighed again. It's weird. This guy is not blackened. It's so strange. I can't understand his blackened routine. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 639. I can't understand Yanj, but it's good if it's not blackened. To this mighty one, she is really drunk. Hemp eggs, don't ask for merit, just ask for nothing. Yanj did not waste time and re-entered the task. When leaving, Zhu Wei tried to hug her thigh. "Miss, you take me to Lao too, this place is so scary, I am so scared alone." Yanj didn't lift his legs and kicked, and the chicken flew across the legs and kicked Zhu Wei away. "Fear a fart, come and play mahjong." In the new plane, the host is an emperor dressed as a man. He is also a good emperor of Wentao and martial arts. It's a pity that it's a woman dressed as a man. Even if she has a very good political record, she is one of the best emperors since the Song dynasty, but she is a woman. When the host Huiwen emperor was 10 years in the reign, his uncle built the king to abolish the host because the emperor was inhumane and did not have the posthumous name. Up and down the court, many ministers have supported this matter. In the eyes of these ministers, Wilhao is about the same crime as indecent assault. The host was born in the heyday of typing. She was established as a prince from an early age. She learned the principles of governing the country, but no one had ever told her what to do if someone rebelled. She was a woman. Ascended to the throne of the emperor, she felt terrified, fearing that the pedantic courtiers would discover her identity and make a fuss. Now that Wangqiang Palace is built, and I don't know where to learn she is a woman, use this to make a fuss. The host was shocked and frightened. Fortunately, although the people in the chaos were heartbroken, the overall situation was stable. However, to her surprise, her most trusted father-in-law ignited the Kinzen hall where she lived in the middle of the night. She was burned to the fire. In the eyes of later generations, she was afraid to face the world because of her identity, so was in her hall of diligence. Jiancheng Wang is not really a royal man. He is just a different named king with remarkable military achievements. The host has been taught with the majestic style of the emperor since he was a child, and now he is burned to death in the hall by a small eunuch. Later generations even felt that she did not dare to die in the face of the world, which made her extremely unhappy. Her heart was extremely unwilling. As an emperor, in addition to her identity as a woman, all other things are worthy of the world, the ancestors and the people, and she will not be cowardly. She hopes that she will be reborn in the next life, and she can have a child of her own early, shed a trace of royal blood for De Song, and do not teach De Song to fall into the hands of outsiders. The life of the host is the life of an emperor. Yanj merged the memory of the host and was silent for a moment. Zhu Wei wanted to make a contribution again, and immediately called out in the space, "Sister, please let me out and I will help you get pregnant. This kind of thing is best for me. I can't do it twice, or 3 times. I can't stop pregnant, it won't take me a few days, and I promise that my sister's belly will swell up." Yanj felt that the next time she returned to the space of fans, she must let Zhu Wei know what kind of tree she was. The chicken is also thinking, would you like me to help you in this plane, which men have different talents? I didn't know anything when I was doing business, but this kind of thing is so positive. Yan Song rolled his eyes. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Wei Pang. Chapter 640. The early days came, and the palace people outside pulled the rope that connected to the bedside ding-dong, and ding-dong's crisp sound sounded. The host is a woman, but in addition to her mother who died early, who she knows, she is also the most trusted old man Li Gong. She protects herself so well because her daily life has always been her own. She never needs extra palace people. This is also considered a taboo for the emperor in the palace. If anyone in the palace dares to commit the emperor's taboo, must be killed by random clubs. At first, there were women in the harem who tried to climb the host's bed. However, after being killed by 2 clubs, not only did the women in the harem cease to exist, but even those in the palace were afraid to touch the taboo. I have to say that the host emperor is actually very brave. When it's hot, when it's time for hard work, it's very motivated. Looking at the countless emperors of the Song dynasty, she is better than anyone. No wonder she is unwilling. Yan Ji got dressed and went out of the palace door. Shoulder Yu had stopped under the steps. The host has been resting in the Kinzen Hall, which is very close to the Golden Crest Hall in the early dynasty. Most of the time, they walked there, but it snowed in the past few days, and the weather was cold, so the host sat on the shoulders. When Ganga sat on his shoulders, Duke Li rushed up and said, "Your Majesty, Nalan's uncle had a cold, and he took a day off." Yan Ji's eyes glanced at him, "Send 2 imperial doctors to the Prime Minister's mansion." The words came to a halt, and sighed, "Well, go down for a while, and I'll go and see for myself." Without Prime Minister Nalan, the courtier's words were also reduced by half. The sister-in-law always harassed the border. The general of Chenese Su Fang went to the memorial again and asked to go to the border to fight the sister-in-law. Yanj wanted to skip his discounts, but he didn't think about it. The guy knelt on the court hall, his voice sadly telling the sister-in-law about the various actions of burning and looting in Bianguan, and issued a military order: as long as His Majesty let him lead the army to the border, he will kill the mule without leaving a piece of armor. The mule will not die, he will never return. The Su family has been a military general for generations. When Su Fang came here, he was born into a prosperous world, and several veterans of the Su family all died for the country. Only Su Fang, a lone seedling, was left. Even if there was a battle in the border, it would not happen. Su Fang came into play, and there was no place for martial arts to put in place. Today Su Fang is unwilling even to marry a family and is full of eyes on the battlefield. The ministers are no stranger to Su Fang's accidents. The civil and military in the Manchu dynasty were philosophers who talked about the truth. Everyone adhering to the gentleman did not do anything, but mixed in. Su Fang, a fierce activist, did not need to sing out. The ministers had already persuaded, and vowed to assimilation. If Su Fang was a person who could easily change his perspective, the stack of memorials on the host desk case would not have appeared. Without the Prime Minister as the leader, all of these ministers were defeated in the radical discourse of Su Fang's biting face and biting his face, and they all knelt down and proclaimed, "Your Majesty, nowadays, Kuatai and Minan, the frontier affairs can be sent. It is not wise for the envoys to go and fight for labor and people to hurt their wealth. I know, this matter will be discussed later." Yan Ji waved his hand, and Li Gong, aside, immediately stepped forward and asked the courtiers if there was anything else. As soon as the Chao dynasty retreated, Yanj was blocked by Su Fang's path before returning to Kinzen Hall. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Wei Pang. Chapter 641. Your Majesty, my Song dynasty is now rich in the country and the people are strong. Why do we still have to tolerate that bitch? The people in Bianguan have been trembling with horror. The minister is willing to lead troops to the border to defend the country and strengthen our country. Yanj stretched out his hand, opened the corner of the bright yellow tent curtain of the shoulder, and looked down at the man kneeling in front of the shoulder. The Su family came out as generals, but they were not five rough and rough, such as Su Fang in front of his eyes. The young man was kneeling there, his eyes widened, and the sun and the military power of the five senses, really a moving male hormone body. I heard that Su Fang's father was still one of the 4 beautiful men in Beijing. This title was ashamed of the Su family. Since the 4 beauty titles came out, Su Fang's father began to have a long beard. A long beard is very distinctive. When Su Fang arrived here, he inherited his father's stinking temperament, and he had a small beard before he got married. The beard was really a big failure on his face. Yan Ji glanced back and looked away. Looking at it, I wanted to shave this guy's beard. The little thought that came out of my heart completely disappeared. Your mother told me that day that you haven't married your wife, and you haven't even settled on your relatives. The Su family is the house of meritorious service of the great song. I don't want the Su family to leave no future emperor with you, to be married after having a wife and children. I will tell you about this battle. The voice of the song is slow and slow. In this cold winter day, it is like a mild sunlight. The listener is physically and mentally comfortable. Unlike her usual day, this voice is not a bit indifferent and indifferent from the superior. The palace men who carried the sedan and Li Gonggong aside were slightly surprised. This is probably the unique treatment of the Su family. Su put on the chapel and quarreled with Confucianism, making those ministers blushed and thick, but when they came to Yanj, a word made him almost deserted. Your Majesty, the minister only wants to. Yanj interrupted him, the Su family will play in the next generation, and your father will also have the battlefield you will come to later. When the Su family has it, it is not only the family of the Su family, but also whether the future emperor will have a big thing that his left arm can depend on. Later, you don't need to mention it again. This is to quote the words of the ministers blocking the host. Su Fang was completely dumb. He pulled his shoulders and stood on one side to make way for Yan Ji's shoulders. He narrowed his shoulders to pass him. He reached out and grabbed the side beams of shoulders. Your Majesty, I have a son and can go to the battlefield. Yet. Yes. A word that flutters lightly to Su Fang, but it seems to weigh heavily. He shouted, Your Majesty, Chen will go home and have a son. Anyway, the swift one has already run away. Su Fang is the same age as the host, but obviously, the host is much more mature than this guy. Yanj asked the Yushan Fang to pack a box of breakfast, and took some of the doctors on duty today to the Prime Minister's house. The Prime Minister Nalan Mo was the explorer of the Emperor during the reign. Of course, this guy was also the son of Jo Men. The Nalan family was inextricably intertwined in the capital. There was no 100 years of accumulation. Nalan Mo's talent alone was not enough to be a young man. This is the Prime Minister. These officials in Beijing have a relationship with everyone in Jo Men. Only after the host was in office for a few years was he able to understand the balance. Speaking of which, Prime Minister Nalan Mo can be regarded as the host's half-emperor mentor. Yanj didn't let people make an advance notice today. Until the door was reached, the Prime Minister's office learned that he was down. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Wei Pang. Chapter 642. The people in the yard were frightened and surprised. Yan Ji ignored the cumbersome etiquette of these people. She stepped down from her shoulders, and walked towards the inner room where Nalan Mo lived. Nalan Mo has been informed that he is wearing a neat dress to go out to meet the song. The man was thin and sturdy, and he was wearing a majestic dress, but he was somewhat romantic because of his thin and tall body. Although thin, his facial features were soft and feminine, but he was standing there, his figure was loose, and his eyebrows were magnificent, which made him dare not disrespect him. He met Li and said immediately after he got up, the minister is just a little sick, how can you bother your Majesty to come to the house in person? Yanj took his arm by the way and helped him head towards the room. The wind and cold outside, all said that the Prime Minister does not need to be polite, can't come out to greet him, how dare he resist? Nalan Mo stretched out his hand and covered his mouth and coughed a few times, pulling his arm back from the singer without any trace. It is the court's fault, His Majesty forgives sins, but the court's courtesy must not be abolished, and his body is infected with cold. Your Majesty is far away from Chen, so as not to infect His Majesty, Chen Wan will die. Yan Ji reached out and motioned for him to stop. Let the royal doctor help you, look hungry. She said that Gong Li immediately asked the people behind him to put their meals on the table. The stove in the room was smoky and hot, and the song was interpreted. He hung on a hanger and sat at the table. When Nalan Mo stood still on one side, he asked, he also prepared a copy for his Prime Minister. For the meal, let the doctors take a look at the Prime Minister first. Don't worry, I can wait for you. Nalan Mo smiled at the words and sighed helplessly, Your Majesty, this is out of order. Yanj heard the words, while wiping his hands, he tilted his head and looked at him, Sir, do you want to go hungry now? In a word, Nalan Mo took a step back. Nalan Mo's body has been weak since he was a child, he has been taking medicine for conditioning, and a little wind and grass movement can make him sick in bed for more than half a month. He will take good care of himself, and maybe he can still be better, but he is the owner of the Nalan family. There are no outstanding people in the Nalan family to replace him now. He is very young in this superb position and carries the entire family. Everyone has to think carefully about the rise and fall of life, and they are not afraid to make mistakes at all. Naturally, they also have serious considerations. In this way, his body is doomed to be unable to support him. It is a common cold. Although the two doctors helped him look at it, they also knew that the Prime Minister had a doctor who was in charge of Nalan Mo's body, so there was no prescription, just a few words of typhoid attention. Nalan Mo thanked the two doctors in a gentle voice, and asked the old lady in the house to entertain and arrange the diet of the two doctors. Then he got up and stood beside Yanj. This is to help Yanj cloth chopsticks. Yanji glanced at him, Ai Ching, sit down, I'm here today to discuss something with Ai Ching, come and eat something first. As soon as Nalan Mo heard something serious, he sat at the bottom of Yanj. Long-term drinking of the medicine caused him to have a bad stomach, so his diet was light and picky. Taste a few bites of pastry. I didn't say anything until the two finished eating, and then Yanji got up, is there a chess piece in the Prime Minister's mansion? I have a round with you. Nalan Mo bowed his head and took the song to his study. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Wei Pang. Chapter 643. Nalan Mo thought that Yanj would talk to him about politics in the hand talk. But he didn't think about it. After talking for a while, Yanj said goodbye, Ai Ching hasn't healed, so I won't bother, and I will come again. Nalan Mo looked at her in surprise, Your Majesty, is there anything else you need to talk about with the minister? Yanj, let us stop, let us change the day, and wait until Ai Ching gets sick again. Nalan Mo did not ask any more, and although Yanj repeatedly asked him to return to the house, he still sent Yanj out of the Prime Minister's house. The chicken didn't understand Yanj's routine, you won't care about this sick seedling? Is he so sick that he can make you pregnant? Nine tails, surely this kind of person has no reproductive ability, younger sister, think about me, I will let you get pregnant once in a while, and the task of giving birth to a younger sister will be completed. There is such a shortcut. Why is my sister wasting time in circles? Yanj took Zhu Wei's words as a breeze and asked the chicken, is there a mighty person in this plane? Who is a mighty person? Chicken, look at Nalan Mo. The Prime Minister, Nalan Mo, had a talent, but was dragged down by the sick and the Nalan family. In his life, he could only learn from the camp to do things he did not like to do. It is indeed standard for the mighty. The chicken did not speak at the sight of the song, and asked curiously, are you planning to provoke the mighty one this time? Do you want to let it go? Yan's song, just him, I can find a chance to sleep. Chicken. Yanj is not really talking about this. The host Rely Wanji, the Prime Minister Nalan Mo also is Rely Wanji. It is not uncommon for Prime Ministers to stay in the palace for official business. The point is that even if this kind of thing leaks out in the future, things like Nalamo will look ahead, and he certainly won't take such things out. After all, being asleep is not a glorious thing. Of course, the choice of Nalanmo for Yanj was mainly due to the fact that the host had nowhere to go in the past. It was Nalanmo who first led the courtiers to confront the host. Words say just do it. After he recovered from his serious illness, he really stayed in the early and late days, probably still thinking about what Yanj had to discuss with him last time. Although Yanj kept him waiting in her own Kinzen hall, she did not show up in Kinzen hall because she was busy in the harem. It wasn't until noon that Yanj entered the Kinzen hall with a tired face. Naturally, he left the Prime Minister for a meal. After dinner, Yan Ji and Xiang Xiang made another round in the royal garden. "I want to have all the people in this palace," Yan Ji said to his Prime Minister Nalan Mo, who followed him. "I looked at the expenses in the palace a few days ago, and found out that the monthly expenses in the entire palace are not phase numbers. It is not a simple matter to reduce the number of people in the palace, not to mention the emperor's mouth, it is to reduce the number of people by half." Naturally, Nalan Mo wouldn't directly oppose the words. He thought slightly, and returned, "Your Majesty will marry the queen in the future. Under the queen, there are concubines and beauties. By then, the palace people will have to use it." Yanj sighed, "This is where I worry, I am so costly. If there is another queen and concubine, I don't dare to imagine it. I tell you this, I want you and you are looking for a solution. Nowadays, the southwestern China is suffering from drought, and the people have lost everything. In the trumpet played by the servants, the people can't even eat the bark. It is up to the bottom to lead by example. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Wei Pang. Chapter 644. Nalan Modiang Guang Guang Shishi finally realized why this matter, the emperor will talk to him first. The gates of the family in Beijing are intertwined, and they are all proud of their extravagance. Even if some families have fallen, they would rather hungry at home, but also have to stand up outside. This kind of thing is more common than BB. The emperor said so. This is also passing on the message with him. This is the emperor. Is it going to start with the family? Yan Ji should know that Nalan Mo soured his brain so much in a flash that he would vomit blood. She just wanted to find something to talk to this guy at night. Although the words started, the words did not continue. But taking advantage of the glorious sunshine today, he had a few rounds with Nalan Mo in the pavilion. After 3 games, it is already sunset. Spent dinner together. Yanj finally talked about business. How do people in the palace cut down, and how to resettle a large number of palace people after the reduction. The maids are okay. Most of the maids who went out of the palace can find a good place, but those eunuchs who came out of the palace door were okay with no savings. I'm afraid they won't be able to live this day go on. He thought about how to place these people. Nalan Mo was slightly surprised, but did not expect that the emperor would pay attention to the future of those palace people. Yan Ji met his gaze, and smiled a little unnaturally. Hey, these days, the sun is coming to the palace, and sometimes I go to the restaurant theater, and I hear so much. I know that these ordinary people are not easy. I am not afraid of my joke. I can't sleep after thinking about those people over and over these days. Her Majesty, this emperor is indeed a craftable material, but these ideas are slightly naive. The Song dynasty system has been around for a long time and cannot be changed overnight. Seeing that Song of Songs was still waiting for him to speak, Nalan Mo thought about it and said, Your Majesty, these matters must be discussed carefully. Yan Ji sent people to send pens and inks to the table and greeted Nalan Mo to go to the bed together. I know that many things are actually not as much understood as Ai Ching, so I wanted to discuss this with Ai Ching. Mainly to delay time. Nalan Mo really believed the words, and discussed the feasibility of the matter one by one. Yanj took all the questions that Nalan Mo said seriously on the rice paper. This kind of thing is a one-word thing, but it can be really done, but it is very troublesome. So the time came tonight. On the night Lu Gong brought light porridge for the two and came in. Yanj took the porridge and gave Nalan Mo a bowl. Ai Ching is afraid that she can't go back to the house today. If she doesn't want to give up, just make a night on this couch. Where is it comfortable to sleep on the couch, not to mention this is the couch in the emperor's room. But Na Lan Mo also had no reason to refuse. He was flattered and thanked him. Although there was not much porridge in a small bowl, it was a good taste. After Na Lan Mo finished eating, he saw the song and put down the bowl. Lay down. The palace person helped Nalan Mo quilt the bedding. Yan Ji went to the bathroom to wash, and her bed was separated from Nalan Mo's couch. After washing, Yan Ji put on his lining and went directly to his bed. Seeing that Nalan Mo was motionless, he said, "The bathroom has prepared soup for Ai Ching. If Ai Ching does not dislike it, wash it and sleep again." What Naran Mo could say was that he couldn't bear to sleep without washing, and for two, he didn't dare to say that he wanted to abandon His Majesty the Emperor. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Wei Pang. Chapter 645. Thank you, Nalan Mo went to the bathroom. By the time the wash came out, the lights in the room had gone out, and only one night light on the wall was glowing yellow. Nalan Mo went to the couch without squinting and covered the quilt silently. The voice of Yanj came at this time, quietly, "Be careful, can you have Gigi in the house?" Naran Mo's word "be careful," the word was given by his hands and teachers. From the beginning of his memory, he did everything carefully and did not dare to make mistakes. Now that he is in a high position, few people have called him, and suddenly he was asked by His Majesty the Emperor, he hesitated slightly. Immediately, the Emperor was about to win the crown. It was just when the youth was young, and the young Mue seemed to be human. Speaking of which, it seems that the Emperor has yet to be lucky. The palace should actually arrange this for the Emperor. His mind flipped, and his voice was mild, "The minister's body is not good. The woman who is afraid of delaying others will never marry a wife. There is no woman beside him." Yanj sighed, "Why don't you care about your children? If so, if there is a need, how to solve it? This is a bit too much to ask." However, Yanj is an emperor, and Nalan Mo only thinks that Yanj is a young man who has not yet learned anything. He should be curious about this kind of thing. Although he has not experienced it himself, he thinks that he is an expert in this respect in the face of the young emperor, so he calmly returns, "The minister has been busy all day and never thought of that." Even if he did, he resolved it by himself. He had a clean habit, and he did not want to touch a woman who was not pleasing to the eye. However, he couldn't say that. It was about talking to the emperor about this kind of thing, and he hadn't solved it for many days, and found out that his body was different. The emperor in that chamber was still inquiring cheerfully, "Even if you are busy, this kind of thought should still be there? Every day is also busy, no matter how soon, but always." The emperor sighed for a long time. Nalan Mo felt that the matter was after the election for the emperor. The voice of Yan Song was lowered, and he asked quietly, "Be careful, have you ever seen a drawing book? That's the kind of drawing book about men and women." Naran Mo. That childish picture book he had seen many years ago. The emperor's lowered voice was a little excited. Nalan Mo listened to this voice, and the pictures of those paintings he had seen before appeared in his mind, and somewhere on the body seemed to be more and more uncomfortable. He moved his finger, but didn't dare to move, for he was afraid that the emperor would notice his strangeness. "Your Majesty, this kind of thing is so filthy, which palace man gave it to His Majesty must be deliberate." Yanj laughed, "I bought it on the street." "Be careful, you are not too many years away from me. Don't be as pedantic as those old masters. I don't believe you haven't seen this kind of painting book." After waiting for Nalan Mo to speak, Yanj asked, "Be careful, do you have any women you admire?" "Have it?" Nalan Mo's thoughts drifted away. However, clearly the body was desperate, but there was no image of a woman in his mind. He rolled his throat and said, "No." The voice of Yanj was soft and low. "To think of a person, I want to touch his little hand, kiss his cheek, or hold him in his arms, tear his clothes, and lie with him, that kind of thing, in a picture book on the bed.